Can you just stop doing outreaches? Next on the Metal Pulpit. Thanks for joining me for another Metal Pulpit. Okay, so let's talk about outreaches for a little bit here, because as a pastor of a church, and you may have grown up in churches before, and I grew up in a fairly big church, this was a thing that, boy, usually they would put funds in to bring in an evangelist, and they would come into a church. The church would plan a bunch of rally meetings and just call it a revival, because somehow we were able to say, this is a revival, when in fact it really wasn't. It was, if nothing else, just a service or a get-together. And we call that outreach. There's one church that I know of locally that spent almost 13 grand on bringing in a famous author of some good books. I'm not slamming the author at all, and I'm not going to say his name, but very good. But $13,000 to bring him in to rent out a local gymnasium and half fill it and call that an outreach. Can we just stop doing outreaches? Because first, before we do outreach, we have to do in-reaches. The Apostle Paul talked a lot about the church, the local church, and the church being the heartbeat of Jesus in the New Testament, the heartbeat of God in the New Testament. And, you know, the fact is that the local church can be an ugly bride sometimes. Let's just say it. It can be an ugly thing sometimes. I've fed the machine. You may have fed the machine, and it's not something we're necessarily proud of. But then there are those churches, there are those Christians that get it, and they understand what the Apostle Paul's saying by saying that if you're a part of a local church and you're going through a tough time, then it is the church's responsibility to help these people out. That's the local church. What happens, though, is that we plan these big events, these big outreaches, whether it's a back-to-school drive where we collect school supplies, or Christmas time we buy something for a missionary or something like that, and all these funds are just going out. And in the city, in your local city, your neighborhood, people are struggling. Even in your own church, people are struggling immensely. And that's a problem that I have, because quite honestly, I've been a part of that before, and I'm kind of done with it. This last August, and for that matter, years in a row, we do back-to-school outreach. We collect a ton of school supplies, we rent a bounce house, we get a grill going, and we throw brats on. That's a Wisconsin thing. Brats are very good. If you've never had one, come up to Wapaka, Wisconsin, and hang out with me for a couple days. Even this week, it's going to get down to -5 degrees. I'll grill you some brats, and that's not a problem. But we did all of that because we took all of our school supplies we collected and did this outreach. And who did we invite? We didn't ship the supplies off to anybody, but we gave them away to the local kids that needed this help. And we gave away 60 brand new pairs of shoes. Here's what we're doing this Christmas. We're not doing anything outreach-wise, okay? We're not going out to do it. We're going in, because I have two families at our church that have suffered immensely. Both families, both 3 to 5 kids, and they have basically almost lost their dad this year due to health reasons. One was run over, another one massive brain tumor, cancer, all of that stuff. And these parents have had the hard talk that, hey, you know what? We're not doing Christmas this year. Well, they are, but they're not going to be doing presents this year for the kids. Now, sitting back and looking at this as a pastor, I'm like, I realize gifts aren't everything. Gifts don't make up Christmas. The celebration of Jesus being born, that makes up Christmas. But I looked at this situation, I said, this is not okay. This is not going to be something that this church can just sit back and watch. So, without board approval, without anything else, it was just something that the church needed to do. I put the APB out there, all points bulletin, police terminology, and said, hey, we got some kids in the church. Let's make it special for them. I know my mom, when she was a little girl, growing up in Milwaukee, her dad died in a factory accident. I never met my grandpa. And the Salvation Army came by with a turkey dinner. My mom, to this day, will not forget about that, and her siblings don't either. So what we're doing is we're collecting all these gifts, and right now we're up to about 10 gifts per kid. There's 8 kids total. And Christmas Eve, we're going to make it so the gifts are part of the stage decoration. You know how churches wrap empty boxes? And then what we're going to do is we're going to call these kids up to the front at the end of the service, and we're going to say, guys, your church family loves you so much. God loves you so much. These gifts are yours. You see, it doesn't have to be a big, expensive thing. The fact of the matter is that it costs the church probably about $50 because we're going to have to make up gifts, keep it even amongst the kids. But, over and over, we pass up these opportunities to help people within our own church or within our own neighborhood to do outreach, missions, things like that, where it's like, I get it, and outreaches aren't terrible, but you got to start inside the local body first. So, John Maxwell, Christian leadership guru, wrote a book called Becoming a 360 Leader. And what this was a book 10 years ago that talked about how you can influence your business, a church or whatever, from not being the top of being a middleman. So next time the church is like, we need to plan an outreach, challenge them. Challenge your pastor. Challenge your board to say, we have people hurting here in our own church. We need to help them out first before we do anything else. We planned a gas buyback program. We were going to lower the gas price in town by $0.25 at one of the local gas stations, and ended up being a single mom. Husband committed suicide, raising girls. This mom was. And the local government agency said, we can't help you. But their roof was literally caving in on this old farmhouse. I went to the board. I said, you know what? This is a no-brainer. $1,000 is what we were going to spend on this. Let's put a roof on this lady's house. And we did that. We did just that. Outreach is rewarding, but when you help those within the church or within your immediate neighborhood, oh my goodness, that brings a lot of excitement to your church body, yourself, to the neighborhood, to the people you're reaching out to, and it gives you a sense of purpose. Outreach doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to have a committee. It just needs some people to recognize a need and say, hey, let's make a difference. So this Christmas, you can even do an outreach and in-reach in this little bit of time. Think about it. Who needs help? Who needs an arm around them? Who needs a hug? Who needs a gift this Christmas season? Make it happen. And if you have any questions, shoot me a question at pastorbobadams@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. We'll talk to you later. Bye.